Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tech Tuesday. This is Sue Dieters, and I'll be your presenter today, along with Suzanne Watson, who's also on the call with us. Our discussion topic is, as you can see, accounts receivable, which is one of my favorite modules because that's where our cash is. And what we're going to do is I want to highlight some of the features of the setup options and then take a quick look at customer maintenance. And then we're going to be reviewing some type of transactions that you have that you can do in the accounts receivable module. Before we start, I want to make sure that everybody knows, as you just heard, you are in listen-only mode, but feel free to type in any questions that you have in the question or chat area, and Suzanne is going to be monitoring those. But if we don't get your questions answered, feel free at the end of the session. I'm going to be putting up our contact information. Send us an email, give us a call. We'd be happy to walk through anything with you. I will just tell you right now, I'm a little overzealous with the topic today. I am going to go over 30 minutes. As fast as I try to talk, I think I put a little bit too much content in here, so we're going to do the best we can to get it within the 30, but I'm probably going to be about 5-10 minutes over. If you have to bump off, don't worry. We do record these sessions. They will be out on our website within a couple of days. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. So I am going to flip over to my other screen here. And now you should be looking at my accounts receivable screen. Now, as I said, I'm going to go through some setup options here. I'm not going to go through all of them. So let's go ahead and open our accounts receivable options, and let's get started. So the first one that I want to look at is divisions. Why would some of us have divisions when other of us don't? Well, what the division code allows you to do, first of all, it's going to put a 2-digit code in front of your customer number, allowing you to segregate them by the particular division and also record your sales by that division. So think about it this way. Let's say you have your multi-state company and you have customers in multiple states and you want to divisionalize those. That's what you can do to separate those customers and identify which state that they belong to. The next field that I want to look at is the allow entry of expanded customer numbers. Now, before I get really far into this, I want to remind everybody, a lot of us weren't here when Sage was purchased, and we don't know what the setup options, why people chose the particular setup options that we have. So this is also a good way of kind of going through and seeing maybe if we weren't there, what good options we have here, but also, is there anything new? And the allow entry of expanded customer number is actually a newer option. Our customer number is 7 characters long, and it can be expanded to 20. When you expand to 20, all of your reports and forms will automatically be changed to accommodate that 20-character field. Doesn't mean you have to use all 20, but it does change to accommodate that 20-character field. And keep in mind, once you go up, you can't go back down. So if you want to go to 20 characters on your customer number, make sure you really want to go. Otherwise, we cannot go back to the 7. So I'm going to say no there. My next area here is post to general ledger. I want to look at 2 fields in here that I see these quite often checked at clients' locations. Sales journal in detail, cash receipts journal in detail. Now, what this will do for your sales journal, it posts every invoice to your general ledger. For cash receipts, it posts every check to your general ledger. Do you really want that? Do you want your ledger to have all that detail in it? Personally, I like to use my sales journals or my cash receipt reports or my invoice history reports. I don't necessarily want to put that on my general ledger. A good example of not posting in detail, a cash receipt journal would be a debit to cash and a credit to accounts receivable, and that's what you would show on your general ledger. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to jump down here to display. Default invoice display. The system comes with invoice number as the default. I usually recommend descending invoice date. And the reason why I recommend that is because it puts the newest unpaid invoice at the top of your list. If you do by invoice number, most of the time your oldest invoices are at the top and you have to scroll to get to those unpaid invoices when we are on the invoice tab in customer maintenance. So that's why I recommend the descending invoice date. over here at current fiscal year and current period, every module has its own period end. So just because you close the period end in general ledger does not mean it automatically closes the period in accounts receivable. So this will show you what your current open period is. You'll notice mine's in 2020. My data is in a future year, which we're just about ready to catch up with that year. But keep in mind, you do need to do period ends in your modules, including accounts receivable. I'm going to now jump over to the additional tab. Now, by default, open item or balance forward. Check this on your systems. By default, it comes with mixed. Your choices are open item or balance forward or mixed. I personally prefer open item. So what does that mean? That means when a customer pays a check, they are paying against a particular invoice or invoices. If you choose balance forward, all of their invoices for a month when you do period end collapse into a total. Most of us are open item, if not all of us. So check yours because somebody may accidentally choose balance forward. Days to retain paid invoices, okay? I personally would say 999 because I want the longest number of paid invoices that I can get out there. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to open up another window down here. Let's see if I have it open. I do. This is where I'm talking about in customer maintenance on the Invoices tab, 999 days of paid invoices. Don't worry though. That doesn't mean your invoices totally disappear. This is just the pay, the paid ones will come off of here as you do your period. And when you get to your 1000th day, when you're doing the period end, your invoices are still out here in this invoice history inquiry. This is a different file, and these invoices stay out there forever until you purge them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Don't worry that you've only got 999 days because we actually do have an invoice history out there that you can still go back and look at. Going to point to the aging categories here. We have people over time say, hey, I don't want my aging categories to be 30, 60, 90. Maybe I want them to be 15, 45, 60, 90, whatever. You can change your aging categories here, and that is going to change it on your aging report. And when you look at a customer, it'll change your aging categories down here. I'm going to click over here to the credit tab. I wanted to point something out here because this actually came up the other day when we were talking to a client. A lot of us don't do credit limit checking, or we don't put credit limits in on our customers. But keep in mind, you can also check their aging categories. So maybe you don't want to put a credit limit on the customer, but when the customer gets to the 60-day or 90-day category, you want the system to check that, or you can actually have it check both. So keep that in mind. You do have that option for the system to check both, and if you're doing aging categories, you can choose which category you want the credit flag to come on. All right, now we're going to jump to the entry tab here. Batch processing. Do you have to enable it? No. I like to enable it because I like to create separate batches. If you have multiple people entering invoices or cash receipts, you probably do want to create batches. Now, a side note about invoice data entry and accounts receivable. A lot of us are saying, well, wait a minute, I own the sales order module. Why aren't I invoicing out of the accounts receivable module? Well, there's a good reason. If you have inventory and you need to bill your customers for inventory, you have to have the sales order module because accounts receivable does not integrate with the inventory module. The other reason that you would have the sales order module is because of the fact that if you need ship to addresses, you need the sales order module. So that's just a side note on that, okay? But once again, you can enable these batches if you want to have separate batches when you enter invoices or cash receipts. Now, I'm going to look over here at the cash receipt entry default bank code. The system comes with a as the default. Now, over time, D became my default. That's my new bank. So when I'm in cash receipts entry, I want the system to come up with D, not A, so I don't have to change it every single time. So this is where you change it right here. Now, I also like to require a deposit amount when I enter a deposit because I want the system to, as I'm entering my deposit, go down to 0 so I know that I have actually entered my deposit correctly. All righty, I'm going to jump over the printing tab. I don't think we really need to look at anything in there, but let's go to history. We have an option in here called customer changes to track. If you want to track changes to your customer, I suggest you track all of them, and I suggest you track them in detail. Now, where do you see this, though? There's a report under the reports menu called the customer audit report, and that is where it's going to tell you the user who added a customer, changed a customer address, deleted a customer, etc. So that's what you would turn on if you wanted to track those changes. Down here into our cash receipts history, I've got mine set to 99 years. That's a little excessive. Maybe you might do 10, but what this feature does for you is it allows you to print your cash receipt report. Maybe you need to print all your receipts for a particular customer, or you want to go back and see, 6 months ago or a year ago, what this cash receipt had on it. And if you don't have your paperless turned on, you have to run your cash receipt report in order to do that. So you really would want that for more than your 2 years out there. And I always recommend doing all transactions, whether they're checks, credit cards, or whatever. Your invoice history, always, 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 always turn this on. You do want to retain your history in detail. You don't want to retain it in summary. This feature is what's going to allow you to reprint that invoice or see what was on that invoice. So we do want to turn this on. We do want to say yes. And I always like to retain the comment lines, because if I put a comment line in on an invoice and I need to reprint that invoice for the customer, I want all my comments to be accessible to me. Okay, let's look over here. Years to retain customer history, years to retain salesperson history. It's set to 2. So what does 2 mean? First of all, 2 means current year and 1 year prior. And where is this history? All right, let's come over here and look at this customer. What it's talking about is here. How many years worth of history do I want? You'll notice I have history here, but if I have that only set to 2, all of this goes away from me. So I definitely want to set that for more than 2. I'm probably going to set it for, maybe 5 or 7, 10, whatever you're comfortable with. That's what that is talking about. And so that's pretty much it of what I was going to talk about with the setup option. So I'm going to accept this, and I'm going to exit out of this customer here. Okay, now let's go into my main, and we're going to go to customer maintenance. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up that ABF customer again. And I notice I have a memo pop up here. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. For the most part, there's just a couple things that I wanted to show you in customer maintenance before we get to the transactions that I wanted to discuss. Everybody knows how to put an address in, so I don't really need to go over that with you. But what I wanted to show you was this paperless button. Paperless does come with the system. It will be located on your menu, and you can send different things throughout the system where it's going to be, you can email your customer invoices, you can email your statements. If you go on the purchasing side, you can email purchase orders, etc. So you may want to set paperless up on your system. I'm going to go ahead and click the button. And in here, once you open the window, I can set it up for which feature that I want to send to the customer. Now I'm going to set up statement. I'm going to say I want it emailed, and then in here I can give the email addresses of the customer that are to receive this statement. So paperless is pretty simple, pretty easy. Saves a tree here or there, but it also saves you a lot of pain, having to stuff those envelopes and get those out in the mail. So you might want to try paperless if you haven't done so already. The other field that I wanted to point out on this main screen was this primary ship-to address. Now remember, we talked about this already. You have to have sales order for this, but what this does is I have set my primary ship-to address for this customer as a 2. So that is actually a code for me. And when somebody enters a sales order or an sales order invoice for this customer, it's going to select this primary address. Anything that is in blue and underlined is a hyperlink. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that just so you can see what I'm talking about. This is a location code. It's a 4-digit code. Make it meaningful. Some people use like the last 4 digits of a zip code, or they may use alpha, whatever you want to use, if you need to, but make it meaningful so that your users know what that code means when they select it. But a couple of things that I wanted to point out here, in your ship tos, you can also choose your warehouse and your salesperson. But more importantly, you need to choose a sales tax schedule. So keep in mind, every ship to can have its own sales tax schedule. It does not necessarily match with the sales tax schedule that's on the customer. We get this question all the time. I've changed my sales tax on my customer and it's still being taxed incorrectly. Oh, do you use ship tos? Well, yes, I do. Let's go in there and take a look. Okay. So when I talk about your sales tax schedules, you notice that this customer is assigned a schedule. Schedules do not come with the system. You have to create the schedules yourself. Recently, sales tax is getting a little bit more difficult than it has been in the past with different things that are going on out there. So you can create your own sales tax schedules, but there are programs such as Avalara's Avatax that integrate with Sage that will do the sales tax for you. So keep that in mind if you are one of those that are being hit with some difficult sales tax situations. Now, I can go over all these tabs, but I'm not going to. We're going to go straight into the Invoices tab because I think this is some important information. This is kind of where I wanted to lead you today. Once again, this is the 999 days of invoice history. I really enjoy this tab. In the old days when we were in DOS, it was a little bit different. It looked more like this transactions tab here, but I find this one easier to read. So when I come in here and I'm looking up an invoice and I wanted to see, what happened on a particular invoice, if I click on it and highlight the invoice, what you're going to see is in this secondary grid, I can see all the information that I need to pretty much see about this invoice as far as posting. Now, the great thing about looking in the secondary grid is it shows you the transaction date. So here we've done really well because our transaction date is 5/21 and our invoice date is 5/21. You always want your transaction date and your invoice date in the same period. If you don't, then a lot of times your aging is not going to balance because the aging report uses the invoice date rather than the transaction date to gather its data. So then if you're not in the same period when you post, then you may end up with an out of balance condition. But the great thing about this drill down here is I can see my invoice, and here I see my payment and the check number that was paid against this invoice. A lot of us, we kind of forget about these buttons over here. We have several buttons and we don't, what are they? What do they do? This is our lookup, our search button. So we're going to click on that and you'll notice that one of our searches is for invoice type. So if you're just wanting to look for credit memos or just invoices, you don't want to see any payments or whatever, you can actually, choose one of these options and search based on that criteria. I can also come down in here and search for a particular invoice balance or a customer PO number, and it allows us to quickly search. If we have got a customer that's got hundreds of invoices out there, this will really help you drill down and get to those invoices faster. Speaking of drill down, this little button right here, that's exactly what it does. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it opens that invoice history that I've been talking about. It shows me that this invoice was originated in the accounts receivable module. And if I go to the lines tab, it shows me everything that was purchased on this particular invoice. If I click my little printer button over here, what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to reprint that invoice if I needed to print it out. Maybe I need to send it back to the customer, or maybe the salesperson needs to see it or whatever. The next button down is our aging report. Pretty cool that we can actually print an aging report for this customer from customer maintenance. So I'm going to go ahead and open that so you can take a look. And here is my customer aging. So if I need to do a little analysis, see what they've got open, it's like, ooh, we're getting a little upset with him about this one. It's not a lot, but he's still out a little bit too far. We need to make some phone calls. So I can actually print the aging from here. I can also right here print the statement. So I'm going to go ahead and look and just preview the statement. Mine's not real fancy when it comes up, but I can actually see the customer statement from here. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. My last button, if I have Paperless set up, I can go into my Paperless viewer. And you'll notice that I have an invoice out here that I had printed to Paperless, and maybe I had previously emailed it to the customer, but the customer says, hey, I never got that. Well, I can actually click on my electronic delivery, and I can email that customer this invoice directly from here. So if you don't use Paperless yet, it's a feature that you may want to use because it really saves you a lot of time. Now, before I leave this screen, one of the other questions that we get quite often is like, hey, I'm in customer maintenance and my balances in my aging categories is wrong. Well, if an aging hasn't been run recently or a period end hasn't been done recently, you may need to recalculate your aging. So that's what this button does right here. It's my magic button, makes me a hero, but you can now be a hero too. So go ahead and accept that. That's all I have to say about customer maintenance. And I want to go down and I want to talk about cash receipts now. Once again, I apologize for talking so fast, but I got a lot of stuff to go over with you guys. There are several types of transactions that you can do in cash receipts entry, not just enter cash, right? But the first transaction that we're going to do is a cash receipt entry because there's a couple of features that I want to point out in here for you. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to create a batch, and I'm going to click on accept. So the first thing that I want to do when I enter a regular cash receipt is I'm going to create a new batch number. So I'm going to click on this, and you can give it a description. For this one, I'm not going to. You can change the bank code. Remember, I said I wanted D to be my default, so that came up. And you're going to enter a deposit date. Good thing about deposit date, okay? You know how throughout the system we always tell you, watch your posting date, watch your posting date. Well, your deposit date is your posting date in this situation. So whatever your deposit date is, that's a date it's going to post over to the general ledger. So I'm going to put in a deposit amount. Today, I didn't get a lot of money. I just got one check in. So I'm going to go ahead and click on accept. Now, when we're in cash receipts entry, one of the features I want to point out here is this invoice number field. If you know the invoice number, or if you have maybe you have a situation where you have a parent company that's paying invoices for their what we call children or subs, but you don't know who can't figure out who the sub is, but you have the invoice number. If you enter the invoice number in this field, it will actually bring up the customer for you. Today, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and enter my customer number. You notice I put a 01 in front of that because they are from my 01 division. And then I'm going to put in a check number here. So there's my check number, and I'm going to enter down to my amount received field. So I'm going to put in the dollar amount that I got. And once I hit tab or enter, you're going to notice that my blue auto button lights up. Now, what does that mean? That means it will automatically take the amount that you received and distribute it to the oldest invoice for this customer. That's a great feature if your customer balance and your posting balance are the same. Okay, if they're not, you're going to want to distribute that yourself. So let's go ahead and go to the Lines tab. Now, what you can do on the Lines tab is you can actually start keying in those invoice numbers. One thing I don't want you to do is to click on this magnifying glass, because why? It shows you every invoice, even though that they're paid. So what you want to do is use what I call my gold button. This is with the gold bar on it. You want to do the select invoices. This will only show your open invoices. Now I can click on the invoice that I want to pay. There's my total selected down here. If I was to, let's say my balance was a little higher and I was paying more, I'm holding my control key down and I'm clicking on the invoices that I wanted to select for this deposit. Now, as we know, I only need that one, but that's how you can that's how you can select multiples at a time. If you're selecting all of them, obviously you're going to use the green checkbox here. All right, so let's go ahead and click OK. And my amount posted and my posting balance is now 0, which is what I'm after. And I'm going to go ahead and click accept. So that's a regular deposit. Okay. Now the fun really begins. Okay. So the next type of deposit that I want to discuss is a miscellaneous cash receipt. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this batch number again. We're going to do all these in the same batch. And I'm going to click on my next deposit number. So what's a miscellaneous cash receipt? This is money I've gotten from a non-customer, okay, an insurance refund. So just for grins, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give my deposit a description. And I'm going to say I got $750 back from them. So this is my deposit. I've got a check. If I put in the word cash, now you'll notice I did put a 01 in front of that because I have divisions, so I have to put the 01. If you don't have divisions, you just type in the word cash. But if I put the word cash in, the system automatically knows that this is a cash customer. And you'll notice that the invoice number field is grayed out over there. So I'm going to put in, Blue Cross refund check. And then I'm going to put in the check number and the amount received. When I go to my lines tab, my invoice number is grayed out. I come down here to my GL account field. My line type automatically changes to GL account. I come into my field here. I enter my insurance GL account, and I'm going to post that. The system automatically put my $750 in there. I'm going to post that to that account, and I can put a comment in if I want to. And go ahead and click on accept. So that's how we do a cash customer, cash refund or check. Now, another type of way that we can use accounts receivable cash receipts is sadly for bad debt write-off. Now, we all know that happens, right? Unfortunately, customers go out of business and they owe us money. So what I can do is I can come in here, create a new deposit. I'm going to call this bad debt write-off. And I'm going to leave my amount received as 0 because I didn't get any money from them. So I'm going to go ahead and click on accept. I need to get rid of those invoices. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose the customer. And once again, I have no check number. So I'm just going to write in bad debt. Now you can put anything in here. You can put write-off or whatever, but I'm using this function to remove these invoices, not delete them. I want to get the balance out so it's not on my accounts receivable anymore. Okay. 0 amount received. I'm going to go to lines. Now, I'm going to enter the invoices. I'm going to use my magic gold button. This person luckily only had one invoice out there. Doesn't owe me a lot of money. It still hurts. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. Now, this customer actually has terms with us, but we definitely don't need to put a discount in there because they're not paying us anything. And you'll now notice that, let me go into this balance field. I got to earn the amount posted field. I got to put that amount in there. And now the balance of that invoice is 0. Okay. So now I need to go to my secondary line. Now in here, since I'm basically writing off this bad debt, I'm going to choose GL account, and I'm going to go to my GL account field. I'm going to enter in my account number for my bad debt write-off, and this system is going to automatically post a negative amount into that field in order to get my posting balance down to zero. So journal-wise, what is this going to do? It's going to end up debiting my bad debt write-off account and crediting accounts receivable, okay? Because the fact that I did not put a dollar amount in my cash field, it does not affect cash whatsoever. This is a way to get, especially if multiple invoices, get them all out of there at one time. Okay, so let's go back in and let's talk about yet another not fun type of cash receipt, or shall we say non-cash receipt. This happens every now and again, right? So every now and again, a customer makes a McBoo-boo and their check bounces. So I've applied that check to an invoice, and now I got to get it reversed off. Now the bank's taking my money back, so I am going to put in that negative amount, and I'm going to go ahead and accept this. Now I'm going to enter the customer that this happened on, and I'm going to enter the original check number that they paid me on. Now, if I got room, if they don't have a really long check number, I like to do that, because when I look at the customer, and remember when we looked at that Invoices tab, we could see the invoice and then the payment. Well, this reversal is going to be underneath that payment, and I want to see that it was an NSF, not that just I made a mistake when I entered their cash receipt. So I want to know why I did this. So I'm going to put in the amount received as a negative, and I'm going to go to the Lines tab. Now here, I'm going to go ahead and enter the invoice number, and you'll notice that the amount posted automatically goes to a negative, and the balance is now a positive, which is what I want. I need it back out there for my aging, because they do have to pay this. So let's go ahead and accept this. Now I've got all my different types of transactions done. If I want to, I can go ahead and click this print button from here, which will print my check register, or cash receipt register, or I can just do my cash receipts from here. Since I did all of them in the same batch, I'm going to select this batch, and I'm going to hit print. I believe I have paperless turned on. We'll know here in 2 shakes, so let's take a look. And here it comes. So here is my first one. Let's make this a little bit bigger for us to be able to see. This is my regular cash receipt. And then this was my cash customer, my refund check for $750. Here is my bad debt, where I am writing it off to this GL account number. And this is my NSF. And there is the journal that it is going to create, because I have 2 different divisions. It is separated by division. Let's go ahead and exit out of here, and I'm going to update that. And as we all know, the next thing that pops up is the daily transaction register. You do want to say yes to this. One of the questions that we get usually when someone's trying to reconcile a month is, hey, my aging doesn't balance to my general ledger. And the first thing that we will always tell you is to come out to your daily transaction register here and make sure that nothing is sitting in there, because that can happen. Somebody accidentally said no to the daily transaction register. So you just want to go ahead and say yes to that. So we'll go back and look at those transactions if we have time. I know I'm already a little bit over, but there's one more transaction that I wanted to go through in here in invoice data entry, and this is how to adjust an invoice. So in your mind, why would you adjust an invoice? Maybe you double billed somebody on accident. I haven't let it go out the door yet. I know I did it. I just got, really crazy, and I went ahead and double billed them. I created 2 invoices. I forgot how I had done the work. Or I have agreed to disagree. the customer complained or something came damaged, and I said, hey, I'm going to give you a credit off this invoice, and they said, hey, don't give me a credit memo, I'll just short pay you. Oh, okay, I'll adjust your invoice down. So invoice adjustments are internal. This is not something that's going to go to the customer. This is not something that you can print like an invoice. It will not happen, okay? So let's go ahead and start a batch. And I'm going to come in here, and hopefully I'm going to pick the right invoice, because what I'm looking for is this message. Invoice number already used. Would you like to accept? So I know I picked the right invoice because it's found it out in the invoice history file. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, okay, I do. And now I need to enter the customer number for this invoice. So when I put that in, this guy's on my little credit checking here, but no, that's okay. I will get the message that invoice exists for this customer. Would I like to adjust it? Yes, I would. So I'm going to hit yes here. It's going to give me the original totals for this invoice. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Now, while we're on this screen, I want to tell you a couple other things while we're here. Adjusting an invoice is not the only thing you can do. You can adjust an invoice date. You can adjust a due date, discount date. Maybe you gave it to the wrong customer, or wrong salesperson. So there are various things that you can change in here if you accidentally, posted it using the wrong invoice date. But keep in mind, we got to keep that posting date and invoice date in the same month. Let's go to our lines tab. Now, I know that this is what I originally charged them for. I'm going to put in a -1, and my amount is now a negative. If I needed to change the GL account number, I can change the GL account number here. And so I don't need to. I can go to my totals tab, and it's going to show that I'm going to adjust this down by $85. Okay. So now let's go ahead and click on accept. So I could print this. I could click this print button, which, as we all know, is this invoice printing. But the system's going to tell me that there's no invoices out there because this is an adjustment. It will not create an invoice. What it's going to create is a transaction entry. Let's come in here and take a look at that. And here's my posting date. Remember, we've got to watch that posting date, make sure it's in the period we want it to be. I'm going to go ahead and click on print. And when we look at this register, it's going to show me that this was an adjustment. So I'm going to say no to my gross profit journal. And here, let's make this a little bit bigger for you and see the system knows it was an adjustment. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say yes to post that. And yes for my daily transaction register. Go ahead and print, because remember, we always want to post all the way through. And there's my daily transaction register, and we're going to say yes. Now, what I want to do, what I wanted to say too, yes, I know you're thinking it. You could also adjust for your bad debt here. But I like to do it through accounts receivable or the cash receipts because of the fact that it allows me to select multiples. So if you got somebody who's got a lot, you definitely want to do that. So where's my $85? There it is. So here's my original invoice, and there's my adjustment. And you'll notice that it does show up as an adjustment, which is what you definitely want to see. Now let's look at our NSF here. Okay, so which check did I do the NSF on? This is the one that they bounced. So remember, I told you that you'll be able to see the check. So here's the invoice, here's the original payment, and here's my little bounceroo where I wanted to put NSF out there. So I know 6 months from now, oh, that's that NSF check. They still haven't paid us on this. So that's why I put that on the end if I possibly can. The other check was for bad debt. So let's take a look at that. Okay, zero balance. because they're not going to pay us. And my check number is bad debt. That's why I put bad debt. Sometimes visuals really help. So anyway, that is really what I had for you today. I hope that it helps. Sorry I had to talk so fast, but I wanted to get all this information in for you. If you do have any questions, you can definitely give us a call, shoot us an email. Oh, before I do that, you're going to need to be able to see how you do that, right? So let me share my other screen back again. All right. So if any of that you need to go back over or you want to talk about further, feel free to do so. As I said, the video will be on the website. I will also have the documentation that I use to create this, so you will have a visual. And if at any time you come up with some other topics that you would like to talk about, we'd be more than happy to entertain doing those. But we're going to continue on with the Back to Basics series. Our next one is going to be on accounts payable, and we'll go from there. So hopefully you guys have a wonderful day. Sorry I kept you a little bit over, but thanks for attending, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.